This is not a sponsored video.
Hey guys, MrPokke here. I don't really make this kind of videos all that often, but I just finished up playing Wuthering Waves with the Cyberpunk Edgerunners collaboration story. And I figured I kind of want to give a little bit of my 2 cents on the overall review for how the story was executed. It's been a very, very long time since I think I've had such a incredibly good experience when it comes to a gacha story, especially for one that's only going to be taking up within roughly 3 to 4 hours, which also kind of reminds me of how the Cyberpunk Edgerunners left me feeling at the end of its 10-episode season way back in 2022. So for any spoilers, right, we are going to be talking about spoilers for both the MSQ as well as the overall Edgerunners series as a whole. So if you have not watched the anime, I genuinely urge you guys to please watch the anime first before you play this story, because it will really put into context for a lot of things and references that I think this entire MSQ have. That I think that this particular story has portrayed this in a very, very good way. Right? So without further ado, let's just jump in for the overall review. I think this particular story, it really reminds me of how I initially felt for the Edgerunners, the anime as a whole, when I finished the anime itself, which is there will never truly be a happy ending in Night City. Right, there's like the overall concept for the entire, not even just the anime, but the series for Cyberpunk as itself, because the entire society into Night City is based on a system of oppression, and people will pretty much never be able to escape from their reality, no matter how hard they try. Right, no matter how many good moments you're gonna be able to share with your friends and family or loved ones, they will all eventually be taken away by the cruel reality that is gonna be Arasaka and everything that is gonna be going wrong in this very post-apocalyptic world that is now Night City in Cyberpunk. Right, so this MSQ, I would say that within the last 4 hours, the ending, which is gonna be seen right here from the screenshot, where David actually meets Lucy, to me it is basically a indirect way where the Cyberpunk Edgerunners writers are going to be giving viewers an experience of a closure, right? You can't really exactly say this is going to be quote-unquote canon where David actually met Lucy, because at the very end of this entire MSQ, we know that at the end of the day, it's going to be a dream. And the moment Lucy wakes up from back into her world in the moon and everything, none of it is going to be back in the memories, even though it is going to be an experience that we shared as rovers from Laharoy and everything in the Wuthering Waves universe, right? So both universes basically never existed on this canon anime timeline. But that being said, I think this is what could have been possible and what Lucy could have told David if she actually met David and if she actually met Rebecca. For both of them is something that they are never going to be able to experience ever again, because in the anime, if you guys have watched the final few episodes, Adam Smasher basically killed both Rebecca as well as David. So Lucy was just never able to get a closure, and when she went onto the moon on the very last episode of the anime, to us the viewers is basically us saying, I really, really wish that you could basically have this closure with David, but Lucy will just never be able to experience that. And it is something that within her mind, I'm pretty sure she would have experienced and appreciated very well if she ever were to be a reality in the Wuthering Waves story. Alright, so that's pretty much the overall. I would count this as a episode 10.5 for episode 11 for the ending of the anime, where, you know, what if at the very, very end of the moon episode where Lucy went to the moon alone, Adam Smasher actually came to find her on the moon, and they actually had this 1v1, and in the headcanon where like she could imagine Rebecca was fighting alongside with her, right? Maybe it was like V, you know, from the original game, and Lucy basically managed to defeat Adam Smasher with the help of like her whatever V or whatever friends are gonna be, and then from that moment on, she can finally tell David, oh my god, I avenged you, right? Because Adam Smasher was the one that basically killed Rebecca and David. So even though she might not be able to tell them face to face, but at least deep in her heart, she was able to get a closure by having that revenge kill against Adam Smasher, which she never got to experience in the anime itself, right? So that's pretty much the overall plot for this entire MSQ, and it really, really is a very, very bittersweet moment where it kind of gives me as a viewer that, okay, you know what, they finally got the little hug, right? They finally met. I mean, they never kissed, right? They didn't kiss. They held hands and they had a little bit of a moment together. The VAs, you know, basically talking to one another. And even though it is all going to be a dream in Lucy's head, I think for a lot of Cyberpunk Edgerunner viewers from the anime, you would definitely come to appreciate how this overall story has been executed in Wuthering Waves, right? So that aside, I just really want to, like, I mean, this is not a sponsored video, right? Actually, how we put this in the start of the video. This is not a sponsored video. I want to say that the execution for this particular collab story, it was very, very well made for someone like myself that actually watched the anime and thoroughly enjoyed it way back when it was first released. In fact, this was pretty much my top 10 anime that I've pretty much watched in my entire life, and one of, if not my most favorite anime series that is just within 10 episodes. Alright, because I think different animes, they have like different lengths and durations in which you can develop and build your characters over the course of like 1 or 2 seasons, maybe like over years, like AOT and all that kind of stuff, Hunter x Hunter. But for Cyberpunk Edgerunners, it really is just one of those animes that within one season, it got you, or rather it at least got me, fully attached to the characters, what their motivations were, and the very ending, we basically wrap up everything as a whole, and that is pretty much what Edgerunners was able to bring to me as a viewer, right? So I just want to say that from the anime perspective, where I thoroughly enjoyed, I noticed a lot of very cool references and Easter eggs that they paid respect to the original anime. For example, the apartment where we actually saw how Lucy was able to see the different visions, right? They're looking out into the tower, right? The Arasaka, the bed, right? The sofa, right? And then the discussions with David, the little TV, the ads and everything. It is something that basically never happened, but it could have happened if Lucy, in like episode 11 of the anime, if she ever were to go back to David's apartment, I'm pretty sure those were the things that she would have definitely said, especially if she went with, maybe say V, right? Maybe she went back with V and then she was able to basically let out her feelings and how she wanted to feel at that particular moment, because the Wuthering Waves game set where we saw the Night Tower, the Night City, right, Arasaka, David's mom, right, the ashes, which really just reminds me of how like brutal the reality really is for people that were born in Night City, because at the death of David's mom, he literally had like nothing in his name, and the only thing that the society was able to give to him after his mom died was the ash, right, the ashes for his mom, and he just carried that in like the laundry machine at the end of the scene, which is just like, it's really, really crazy how they actually integrated to the actual story set for the apartment itself. And it also gave me a little bit of a throwback where like before David was chromed up, right, after David got chromed up, they were both like sitting side by side. It was not in any like sexual tense or whatever it's gonna be, but it really just shows two different souls within Night City and how tragic their stories are, where there will never be a happy ending no matter how hard they try. And at the end of everything, because of how oppressive Arasaka is, right, because of how oppressive Adam Smasher is, it is almost like an inevitable thing that everyone in Night City will just come to a very unfortunate end. But before that ending actually hits you, I think David and Lucy's moments that they shared together before their final battle, it was very, very well appreciated. And now that David, basically passed on and everything, and Lucy managed to go back to his apartment, that gave a lot of closure for people that actually, you've watched the anime and you see how this scene, right, this bedroom with like David and Lucy, they shared a lot of moments together right here, whether or not they're intimate, whether or not they were like sharing their feelings, their dreams about whether or not they want to go to the Dream Moon. I think that was just a very, very nice little touch. All right. Aside from that, I want to just talk a little bit about Rebecca as well. I think Rebecca as a unit and as a whole, as a character, something that I want to keep in mind is that in the original anime, she did actually show a little bit of like romantic interest towards David at the start. So like she was trying to like, talk to him a little bit. She was like performing tricks, and then she was trying to get like David's attention. But David just really never gave her that time of day because his mind was basically constantly on Lucy. All right. And, Rebecca being that cool little, little gremlin that she is, she eventually just, okay, you know what, since, I can't really be like David's, like, love and everything, she just did her best possible means to be his friend. And at the very, very end of one of those episodes where David was undergoing cyberpsychosis, right, the part where he was still zoning out and he wanted to go to the top of Arasaka Tower, and his mind was like literally fried because of the amount of like chrome that he equipped, the son of Edistan, and that he was going to fight an Adam Smasher. Rebecca looked David in the eye, and David at that point saw Rebecca as his mom. And then David was like, look, mom, all right, we're going to the Arasaka Tower, right, all the way to the top. And Rebecca, in her mind, she already know that there's no coming back from this. And then David, whether or not he wins or loses to Adam Smasher, he's basically going to be gone. So in that one final dip, Rebecca was like, okay, you know what? All the way to the top, we're going to get you there. And she said the exact same thing in the story here as well. And then when she actually said it, and then she made it references to like basically Lucy and David, it was genuinely a very nice touch of flair. And it was exactly how she was going to be portrayed within the anime itself. So I thought that was going to be very cool. And the overall character for Rebecca, she had a lot of dialogue, especially with the interactions with like, the little cat, right? The interaction with Haroy, Sigrika, the NPCs, right? Shooting the scores and everything, it also does remind me of how her character development was like in the original anime, where she was not really that main character, but she added a lot of life and the overall dynamic that you were able to experience between the whole Night City, David, Rebecca, Maine, as well as the little butler guy, before they were, gonna meet their inevitable demise, right? And at that scene where Lucy essentially revealed to Rebecca that you already did, and you are basically figments of my imagination, David is also imagination, and at the end of everything, you guys will basically not exist because all this is basically happening because of myself, right? And Rebecca, even though she is Lucy's imagination, she knew that. She really knew she was dead, but still she faced death head on because it doesn't matter whether or not she's gonna be living or dead. What matters to Rebecca is their legacy they leave behind, which is basically the credos for Night City as a whole, because you can see that towards the end, there's also this little moment in the vending machine where you could see ordering a David Martinez. So that cocktail bar that you're able to play in the game, they basically honor all of their fallen heroes back in like the underground for Night City, and David Martinez is one of them, and that perfectly encapsulates the overall feeling how Rebecca sees her life as, right? So even though she's gonna be dead, she still wants to be there for David and Lucy and give it her all in order to support Lucy and finally give her the closure and overcome this, nightmare TD, which is basically taking the form of Adam Smasher, even though that's not really Adam Smasher, but helping her out, her friend, just like how Rebecca helped out Lucy in the original anime by sacrificing her life and then, just giving everything to those around her, right? So that is pretty much gonna be another little plot I want to discuss. I do really also want to talk about this a little bit more, which is Rover's connection in this overall story. It is definitely going to be way more sidelined, and I really appreciate how you didn't really get that sense of like, those like memes that were getting wives. He really just took a much more laid-back approach and made the entire collab story focus directly more on Lucy as a whole, right? This story is not really so much about Rebecca and David. It is really about Lucy, her getting the closure that she desperately required at the end of episode 10, and now we are going to be able to give her everything for both herself as well as the viewers, looking through the adventure and dynamic between Lucy as well as David, right? And us as Rover as well as Abby, we are basically there to help them navigate around our little world, right? Teaching them our terminologies, the analogies of how it's going to be, and how do we defeat this nightmare TD, and helping her out all the way at the end. And I just want to say that very last moment, that fight at the moon, oh my god. The music, the vibes, the sudden appearance of David when they sat on the moon and like they really had that little, the scene that we basically never got to see in the anime, and they made this into the collab itself. I just genuinely feel that as a viewer, that was probably one of, if not the best experiences I could have possibly asked for. It is, in fact, I would say this is so good, I could just discount this as a little bit of like a Easter egg or like an epilogue that you would have viewed yourself anyways if this actually took place in the anime world. Now, once again, I want to just preface that all of this basically did not happen canonically speaking, right? Wuthering Waves as well as Cyberpunk, they are completely different universes, and whatever that Lucy had experienced here, it is not real. But I think the way that they portrayed and executed this story with the music, the references, right back into how Night City was going to be like, the dynamic between all of the different characters, it does signal to me as a viewer, it feels real. It gave me the experience of myself as a viewer, and Lucy actually did talk to David and said everything that she wanted to say, and it is something that I could finally say, okay, you know what, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the Lucy arc will come to a close over here, because the whole point of this is not, it is a good ending. There will be no good endings in Night City, which is the entire premise of Cyberpunk anyways, but it is what could have been, and it gives off viewers that very nice little bittersweet ending, which you can definitely see from David and Lucy finally sitting on the moon together, even if it's just gonna be for a brief fleeting moment in her dream, right? So before I end off this review, once again, I really highly recommend you guys first check out the anime first before playing this story, because it will not be a experience that you could ever replicate ever again. That is how impactful the anime is to this MSQ. If I did not watch the anime, I probably wouldn't have gotten any idea what was going to be happening on in Lucy's apartment. I wouldn't have gotten any idea why Rebecca dying, right? David is dead, Rebecca is dead, and who this Adam Smasher is. It is just so impactful to the overall story. And just one little thing, in case you guys didn't really read the anime or rather watch the anime and you're watching this video, the reason why Send Death is 10 is such an interesting mechanic, and they integrated it to Adam Smasher's fight itself. The whole boss that you have Adam Smasher is just a perfect homage as to how Adam Smasher's dynamic was with David. It does feel like us playing as David, fighting against Adam Smasher for the last time. Unfortunately for David, Adam Smasher killed him, which back into the anime reference again, Adam Smasher said the exact same thing and did the exact same move against Lucy. Alright, I will see you in hell, which is what David told Adam Smasher because David rejected Adam Smasher because Adam Smasher ordered to chrome David up and repair him to make him like his subordinate or whatever, and David refused. So Adam Smasher did the exact same rocket move to kill David on the head. And they did the exact same scene to Lucy, and then Adam Smasher told Lucy to see you in hell. He did a move, and the rocket would have then hit Lucy's face, and it would have both exploded, but luckily that did not happen, right? So that was just a very, very, very nice boss fight that I experienced from an anime enjoyer. So I just want to say at the end of everything, please watch the anime, absolute cinema, 10 out of 10 collab story, pretty much the best story that I've ever played in a gacha game. And before I end off this video, I kind of just also want to say this again, which I've also said it to my end of my stream, which is I hope that this little experience that we have in Wuthering Waves, as well as the Cyberpunk's collab, it's inevitably going to be fueling gacha tribalism, but if possible, I hope that people come from this as a place of good faith and positive growth for the industry standard as a whole. Because while Wuthering Waves and Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I really, really enjoy this collab. It doesn't mean that, oh, Crow did it better, or Hyo did it better, or like my gacha game is better than your gacha game. I feel that everybody involved in the community, if you have enjoyed this series, either Cyberpunk or Wuthering Waves, it is a monumental W. And it is just something that I found myself to enjoy, and I had a great 3 to 4 hours myself with my chat and my viewing experience. And in other games, right, in other communities, I think it could be good if people can also use this as a source of inspiration to improve the overall storytelling. I think this overall storytelling, the camera angles, the boss models, the music, the pacing, it was really, really done extremely well. The references and the link back to the original anime, it is just such a nice collaboration. So I hope that at the end of this whole thing, we come from this as a community to improve and to not put others out, right? So that's pretty much all I have. I just want to get this video out. It's currently like almost 3 AM. I'm gonna hop back on the Brown Nuts too. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. No outro, whatever. Use code POKE10 for yourself. Bye.